Welcome back, everybody. This is one of my largest projects ever. I needed to build a church for my little Italian fishing village in Gn15 1/24th scale, and I looked in Pinterest, on the internet, on YouTube, and on Instagram. I found inspiration by a modeler named Gn15, which I will provide a link to his page so you can see what he built. I started the project using foam, like I always do, and I started making the doors out of thin wood, about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. It's a plywood. It cuts easily with an X-Acto knife, and I sanded it. And I used even thinner wood to start framing out the doors. This was a challenging project. This building is over 2 feet tall by 2 feet wide. It required a lot of space to even make it. But I worked carefully, sanding everything. I used, in addition to the wood, I used Sculpey to make some of the more ornamented wood carving portions. I built the doorway little by little in sections using foam, wood, and Sculpey as I described previously. It was a rather tedious project, but it was worth the effort. The prototype church, which is located in Sicily, Santa Caterina it's called, had some of its plaster already falling off and the stones underneath were exposed. So, of course, I decided to model that too. It was a pleasurable activity. Just put on a podcast or some music and just therapeutically remove some of the foam until you get the kind of stonework that you want. The next thing was to make the nave for the statue. I framed it in and then patched it up with some plaster. And then there was the window opening. Framed that with wood trim. And it was starting to come along. I made the window using, of course, the plastic from CD cases. Just using an X-Acto knife and many passes will get you a nice clean cut. One of the nice features of this church is there are several statues on it, the angels and this Saint Caterina, that's carrying a sword. Now the real statue has the saint stepping on a head, but I did not model that. The prototype church also includes a little rectory that has a nice wooden door that I made out of wood and painted it and sanded it to make it look distressed. Of course, this is a detail that nobody will ever see because it's actually behind a big wall. Of course, this is not the first time I am making something that nobody will ever see. Some of you may remember that in one of the earliest episodes, I modeled a bed that have a coffee tray, a croissant, a book, and a coffee cup, but nobody will ever see that. But what the heck, it was fun to do, and here's another project that I did that nobody will ever see. This is me building the interior floor and the vestibule. When you look at it from the layout edge, it's mostly in the dark. But I thought, why not put it in to see if I can obscure some of the views and add a nice little interesting detail. Of course, I should have painted this before I glued it to the back of the church. It would have been easier. I enjoy these models because it's a larger scale. Not everybody on YouTube is making 1/24 scale. And this just shows some of the advantages of the larger scale. And because it's a model railroad, it makes it even more unique than the more typical N scale and HO scale. Even though I really enjoy watching those videos, I enjoy also making this Gn15 model railroad with this unique thing like this church. Here I'm beginning to create the cobblestones that I need to put down first before I glue the church down. I've done videos before on how I make my cobblestone. Like always, I use Durham's water putty and hand carve it. It's always a race to carve everything before it dries up because it dries rock hard. This project is really multifaceted, including the carvings, the sculpting of the figures, the architectural work of the church, all multifaceted project that was just kept me interested. It was all these little sub-projects that I looked forward to, and there was problems to solve. So it was really a fascinating project. I should mention that the cobblestone was a little bit tricky. I had to be careful to make sure that the stones would not impede the locomotive, and later I discovered that it did, so I had to use a Dremel tool to carve it down. I also made figures for this church scene. These are a man and wife getting married, and they are emerging from the ceremony. Late in the project, I decided to create a wedding scene, and I decided to try to model my wife and I when we got married. And I don't know if the figures do us justice, but it'll allow me to come to the train room and kind of relive that moment in our lives. Although we did not get married in Italy, this allows us to reimagine what it would have been like if we were married there. Because the cobblestone was a little high in many spots and prevented the train from moving, I had to use a Dremel tool to carve some of the stones down, and then I had to repaint it. And now a quick run through of the scene of the completed church and rectory. Thank you for visiting the little fishing village of Amalfitano. Please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Until next time, arrivederci.